SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
If you're feeling anxious about your investments with all the economic volatility and chaos in Washington, tune in to SuperTalk Jackson on Wednesdays from 9 to 10 a.m. and Sundays from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. for Element Wealth Radio with Jeremy Nelson. Learn more at myelementwealth.com.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21. I want to believe.
Good morning. Welcome. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross, 24 degrees. That's what I walked outside to this morning. It is cold in your neck of the woods as well. Whether you live in DeSoto County or Harrison County or Jones County or Coahoma County or anywhere in between, you are waking up to a chilly Tuesday morning, the 11th of November. You are also waking up to a government that says it is going back to work just as soon as the House can get itself to the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and can get the votes. But no funny business from Republicans. Right? There's no room for any funny business as you had a new representative, or have a new representative that is about to be seated that will make 218 Democrats, which means the wiggle room for Republicans is nil. Hakeem Jeffries says no Democrats are going to vote for this. We'll see. And they still want to tell you that Republicans are the reason that the government is shut down. Thanks for being with us this morning. C Spire text line is open. 601-879-4395 is the number. Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals available for you right now. You don't have to wait for Black Friday or Cyber Monday. They're available for you right now. Great deals on the iPhone, great deals on a Samsung Galaxy S25, and a whole lot more. Learn more online at cspire.com. C-Spire. Customer inspired. 601-879-4395. That is the number for you to jump into the conversation this morning. Lance, good morning to you.
Good morning, man. Yeah, it's nice and it's not cold like 24, you know. It's nice and 30-ish here, so.
Oh, yeah?
Very nice, though. Yeah, I think it said like 32 when I was driving in, so very pleasant.
Are you doing like the tough guy, it's not cold thing, or like?
No, really 32 is, that's 32 isn't that bad, but 24, yeah. That's you're in winter when it's 24 degrees. Yeah, I don't even know if the plants really got frosty last night. I tried to look this morning under the covers, and it didn't seem like the covers had any frost really on them. But
so you're saying there's a difference if you're in a duck blind in 32 and 24? Yes.
Oh man, yeah. 24 sitting on the porch is okay. 32 in a duck blind's a lot colder than you think. Yeah, so it just depends on it's perspective, right?
There you go.
Yeah. But
especially that you water get down, around, a little breeze coming off that water.
You always get a little wet.
Wind.
You always get a little wet too. I don't know if I've ever gone duck hunting once, and I've been hundreds and hundreds of times where something that isn't supposed to get wet probably is going to get wet.
Yeah. You just hope it's not your feet.
Yeah. The hands you can deal with it.
Not a hole in the waders
somewhere.
Man,
I've had that many a time, man. That's just par for the course. As long as it's not in the ice temps, the hole in the waders isn't that bad, but it's just not comfortable. But yeah, when you get down to this kind, you don't want it leaking on you a little bit.
That's right.
I seem to buy pairs that like to do that after a couple seasons. So
yeah,
all the glue in the world doesn't keep water out. Care what they say. Just go buy new ones.
Mainly sunny skies today with 56 degrees, winds out of the south-southwest at 10 to 15 miles an hour. That in and of itself is going to make a difference today from where you were yesterday with winds out of the north and northwest. That wind direction has shifted a little bit, and that's the reason that the temperatures are going to climb so quickly back, not just into the mid-50s today, but into the mid-70s for the remainder of the week. Canton, sunny for you today, 60 degrees, winds out of the south at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Hattiesburg, the hub city, going to be sunny and 60, winds out of the south, again, 10 to 15 miles an hour, and even farther south into Iberville, actually a little cooler there than in Hattiesburg, 58 for your high today. South-southeast, 5 to 10 miles per hour. That is a fall golf forecast for you. Now, maybe not at 9:30 this morning. Had a buddy that texted me yesterday. He was like, hey, 9:30 tee time. And I was like, hey, 40 degrees at 9:30. But if you can sneak out at 11:30, play to about 3:30, 3, get a quick round in, shouldn't be crowded. Oh, what a day. What a day for you if that is on your radar. George S. Patton. I should say General George S. Patton. Fighting in Sicily and Italy and Normandy. Oh, blood and guts. Born in San Gabriel, California on this day in 1885. Feels like this was probably a pretty smart guy. American physician Joseph Gilbert Hamilton. Born in 1907. Pioneer of using radioactive isotopes in disease treatment and diagnosis. Born in Waverly, Massachusetts. That would be radiation therapy, I think. Lance, that sound right to you?
I think that's right. I know they use that kind of stuff in like prostate treatments and things of that nature. I know that, but yeah. I don't know what all the applications are.
Another smart guy. A guy like this, I can't help but wonder when he is operating in his area of expertise, if he knows the human toll. I'm sure he does, but working in a lab and working in real life, not always the same thing. Raymer Schreiber, born on this day in 1910, lived until 1998, the American physicist working on the Manhattan Project who helped develop the first atomic bomb during World War II and then prepared the Fat Man bomb that was used in the bombing of Nagasaki. Born in McMinnville, Oregon.
Man, I'll tell you that I watched a little documentary the other day about the island that they had to kind of load everything up on out in the Pacific. Mm-hmm. And it had been abandoned. It was an airstrip. And apparently America is rebuilding some of these airstrips. And I think we're about 18 months in on redoing this one because, of course, you got a saber rattle with China. But the point of the video was to go into the detail of, the many layers of how the bombs actually got to be dropped. And this island was very instrumental. They had like the bomb bays in the ground where they had to bring it up and load it. And apparently the Americans had built all of that in about 8 months to make preparation for bombing Japan. Oh, wow. And we're 18 months into just repaving an airfield. Yeah. But they did all of it in like 8 months. It was really remarkable how quickly America ratcheted up for World War II. And then toward the end, really, as some of like the bomb, just how quickly and how well we were positioned to take advantage of those windows.
It's amazing what you can do when you have no choice.
Yeah, well, that and, we had choices, but at the end of the day, though, when we made our mind up, it was,
sure.
You didn't want to mess with America once America put its full force behind it. It's really an amazing thing to see. And I think a lot of folks out there maybe in the world today don't remember that how quickly America can turn from this division into one well-greased machine that kicks butt.
Yeah. That capability still exists is something that I know a lot of people maybe wonder. Jonathan Winters was born on this day in 1925, American comedian. He was on Mork and Mindy.
Oh, yeah, that's the best, man. You never have really watched the Jonathan Winters and Robin Williams comedy? Oh, you don't know what you're missing, bud. That's the best stuff ever.
Fuzzy Zeller, born on this day in 1951, American golfer, won the Masters in 1981, the U.S. Open in 1984.
Best name.
From New Albany, Indiana.
Best name in golf.
Yeah.
Chi-Chi was good, too, but Fuzzy Zeller, you got to love that.
Man, he was fun. He was fun. Got himself into a little hot water early in Tiger Woods' career, but genuinely don't think that Fuzzy meant that the way that it was taken. To me, more, 63 today, born in 1962. Ghost, Striptease, G.I. Jane.
G.I. Jane's rock, man. That's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. Among many, many others, the Always Beautiful to Me More, born in Roswell, New Mexico. Remember this person, Callista Flockhart?
Isn't that Harrison Ford's wife or something? Didn't they get married?
Callista Flockhart?
Yeah, wasn't that her?
I don't know. Always felt like she needed a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Played Ally McBeal.
Four.
Yeah.
Some Ward's burgers.
Oh, Leo is 51. Can you believe it? Leonardo DiCaprio, born in 1974. The Departed, Inception, The Wolf of Wall Street, Titanic.
Dude's
the
a
list
hoss.
goes on and on. He was born in Los Angeles. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The most recent one, what was it? The L.A. one, the Quentin Tarantino one. That was pretty good. Pretty good movie.
Heck of an actor.
Yeah.
And wasn't he found dating like a 24-year-old not too long ago? And I don't
He
say
only
that
likes
as
the
if she's young.
24-year-olds. Yeah, that's his
Like
thing.
that's like kind of the top end of the age. That's the age limit or something for what he would.
They get
date.
cut after that, I think.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm. We'll give you some things that happened on this day and then hit the news headlines when we come back. Good morning to you.
From the Venable Glass.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
People want to hear the truth, man. That's what we're going to do.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Man, that picture you just sent me, Lance. There's a
Yes,
duck
sir.
hole right there.
Yeah.
That is the reason you get up early, isn't it? That view?
Yeah, man. That I have a couple of them. That's the one that's out on bigger water, and one of the now the sun will get you a little bit, but when it's 26 degrees, that sun doesn't really bother you when it's right in your eyes. But yeah, now that lake is about 2 to 3 feet deep all the way across. It goes for miles. So you're talking about leaky waders. That's the one you don't want to have to wade. Some of the young bucks out there, they'll get on the far side and wade all the way. It's about 300 yards across.
Now, hold on a second. You have given me a hard time, and you made fun of your brother-in-law before
I have
about
to, yeah.
about high-end gear.
Yeah.
But are waders not something where you go, you just can't skimp on them?
I mean, there's two schools of thought, I would say. You
Okay.
can go with a couple, $200, $250 range pair, and it's
And
going
I
to
have
get
no
you
idea how much waders cost.
around that probably.
Okay.
If you're looking for a pretty decent name brand, and they'll last you for a couple seasons if you're lucky.
All right.
You can likely go up in price to some of the more expensive ones, but if you really read reviews, folks that hunt in them every day,
Yeah.
you're going to probably run into the same lifespan on many of them. So, yeah, I mean,
So
there's
they
some.
top out at about the same.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to spend $1,000, $1,500 on a really good pair, and I mean, yeah, that's my point. So, yeah, if you want to drop, $850, $1,200, you can, and sometimes
But they're like diminishing returns after a certain
yeah.
price.
My opinion, yeah, and I've been doing this my whole life. Now, they've obviously come up with better products, but I still have yet to find the pair that you can buy once and you don't have to worry about it,
So you don't necessarily want the $50 waders, but
if you're going
you don't
once,
necessarily have to have the $1,200.
I have
waders.
a pair of $75 neoprene waders that are always in the back of my vehicle.
Just in case.
Just in case, yeah, and they're boot foot, or you can get the sock foot, but you can get some really cheap ones, and those are great for just working.
All right.
But when you're wanting to go hunting, you don't want to use the waders that you're out working on the duck blind in. And Sitka does have a lifetime warranty. That's one of the really quality products. You're going to pay for them now, but man,
Yeah, but if you got a lifetime warranty,
again, you get what you pay for, and Sitka is probably top of the line when it comes down to it.
all right.
But yeah, I can't afford them even with a lifetime warranty. But some
eventually
people
you
can.
could.
Yeah.
After you buy the same pair over and over, every 2 years. But anyway.
It's tough to come up with $1,500 for for a pair of waders at one time. Right. They had like a 20-year payment plan. I'm in. Yeah.
All right, let's roll on these things that happened on this day. There's some cool stuff. The Mayflower Compact is signed by the Pilgrims at Cape Cod, establishing the first framework of government in the territory that is now the good old U.S. of A. That happened in 1620. 1918, World War I armistice signed by the Allies in Germany comes into effect with hostilities ending at 11 a.m., the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 11/11/11. Well, 11/11 on 11/11/18. You get the idea. This day in 1921, President Warren G. Harding dedicates the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. If you have not been, I highly recommend that is something that you put on your to-do list, your bucket list, your travel I would like to list. It is one of the most moving things, assuming you have a heart, that you will ever see in your life. This day in 1957, Sun Records released the single Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis. Sold 1 million copies in the first 10 days. 1983, President Ronald Reagan became the first U.S. president to address the Japanese legislature. 2008, Taylor Swift released her second studio album. It was called Fearless. It was highly acclaimed, became the Billboard Album of the Year, Grammy Album of the Year, American Music Awards Album of the Year as well. All of those in 2009, 2010. In 2022, cryptocurrency FTX, that cryptocurrency exchange that was founded by Sam Bankman-Fried, they said no mas. They filed for bankruptcy amid accusations of financial mismanagement and criminal misconduct. It was not a good day for the crypto world, and yet it has marched on steadily since then. And just 2 years ago, over 300,000 attended a pro-Palestinian march in London, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Mayor Sadiq Khan in London accused Home Secretary Sue Braverman of stirring up violence by right-wing protesters. Yeah, it's never the pro-Palestinians that are the ones doing the stirring. It's never their rhetoric, death to the Jews, from the river to the sea, etc. They're not the ones that are inciting the violence and stirring it up. It's the right.
Forever.
I mean,
forever.
We've only got to look to Berkeley, California last night to find another example of that. I'll tell you about that more later this morning. Here we go. If you need an update on news, this is what we got for you this morning. Biggest headline of the morning: the Senate passed legislation yesterday to reopen the government, bringing the longest shutdown in United States history to an end as a small group of Democrats ratified a deal with Republicans despite searing criticism from their own party. The 41-day shutdown could last a few more days as members of the House have to navigate planes, trains, and automobiles to return to Washington, D.C. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but air travel's been a little tough. They've been on recess in the House since mid-September. Quite the paid vacation. They returned to Washington to vote on the legislation. President Donald Trump has signaled support for the bill, saying Monday that, quote, we're going to open up our country very quickly, close quote. By the way, that was not necessarily a shot at House members for not being there. There was not really anything they could do, although some would argue to the contrary. Final Senate vote was 60-40. Not a lot of room to spare there. They broke a grueling stalemate that lasted more than 6 weeks as Democrats demanded that Republicans negotiate with them to extend health care tax credits that are going to expire on January 1st. The Republicans never did. 5 moderate Democrats eventually switched their votes as federal food aid was delayed, airport delays worsened, and hundreds of thousands of federal workers continued to go unpaid. And if you're going to give up without getting across the finish line, it makes you ask the question, so why'd you do it? Not really a good answer.
Well, one of the interesting points there is the Congressional Budget Office estimated that the 6-week shutdown will reduce growth in this year's fourth quarter by about 1.5 percentage points.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Now that would grow that would cut growth from about half from the third quarter. Reopening should boost first quarter growth by next year about 2.2 points. But about $11 billion in economic activity will be permanently lost, according to the CBO.
As Congress works toward reopening the government, the SNAP program recipients in Mississippi will soon begin receiving partial benefits. The Mississippi Department of Human Services announced yesterday it will begin partial distribution of SNAP benefits following guidance from USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. Beginning immediately today, up to 65% of the November SNAP benefit allotment will be delivered. The benefit amounts have been set by the federal government, not by the state. SNAP benefits in Mississippi are issued on a rolling basis between the 4th and 21st days of the month. If you were supposed to receive benefits between the 4th and the 10th, you will receive them immediately. Otherwise, you will receive them on the day in which they were supposed to be deposited into your account. But about 65% is the number. Roughly 380,000 Mississippians depend on SNAP benefits, and around 60% of those are children. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith lauding the results that came from a meeting that she had with the president and his team at the White House. She posted on social media on Saturday that she had requested a meeting with President Donald Trump along with Senate peers Tim Sheehy of Montana and Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma to discuss the ongoing challenges faced by cattle farmers. The president did not come alone. J.D. Vance was there. Marco Rubio was there. So was Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins. As a result of the meeting, according to Cindy Hyde-Smith, the U.S. Department of Justice launched an investigation into meatpacking companies. She went on to say, we got remarkable results. Not only did we get an investigation into price manipulation by the meat packers, we also got tariffs removed on fertilizer. I am proud to represent the American farmer. Those are some of your news headlines on this Tuesday morning. More MRC with you right after this.
From the Seabrook.
What are we going to do?
Rise and shine with information and insight.
Check it out.
Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Coming strong. Mornings with Richard Cross. That'll help you rattle the cobwebs out as you wake up this morning. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming online at supertalk.fm, SuperTalk TV, available to you as, Sorry.
What happened?
I cleared my throat because when I tried to say available to you, it went available. Didn't really come out the way I intended for it to.
Puberty again.
Huh? Yeah. Available to you as a podcast, where you get your podcast. I think that's what I was trying to say. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. It is time for your sports headlines. Your morning sports update is brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Find them online at pearlriverresort.com. But don't stop there. You can check out all the things that are happening at PRR. live events, concerts, comedy shows, and visit them in person, whether it's the Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, the sports book, maybe you're just going to the casino at the Golden Moon. They've got you covered. Pearl River Resort, the home of family fun, casino thrills, and live entertainment. Biggest basketball game in the country last night involved Mississippi State. Bulldogs traveled a long way. They went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to play a neutral site game against Iowa State. Iowa State team that was ranked number 16 in the country. Iowa State's Tamin Lipsey scored 14 of his 25 points in the second half to lead the Cyhawks to a 96-80 win over Mississippi State last night. Tough night for Mississippi State in terms of protecting the basketball. Iowa State forced 26 Mississippi State turnovers, leading to 29 points. Bulldogs committed just 7 turnovers in their season opening win against North Alabama. Josh Hubbard led the Dogs. He had 25 points, 8 of 17 from the field, 4 of 10 from 3. Acor finished with 9 points and 8 rebounds. It was close early. First half featured 8 lead changes. Delquan Warren hit a 3 to cut the Iowa State lead to just 2 with about 5 minutes left. But then the Cyclones went on a 15-3 run. I think I called them the Cyhawks a second ago. That's the name of the rivalry series between the Cyclones and the Hawkeyes. Anyway, up next, Mississippi State. They've got Southeastern Louisiana on Saturday. Of course, Mississippi State football is on the road on Saturday, so you get Hoops at the Hump coming up this Saturday. Separated by about an hour's drive, Ole Miss and Memphis face off tonight at the SJB Pavilion on the campus of Ole Miss with an 8 o'clock tip-off on the SEC Network. Ole Miss off to a 2-0 start, led by Chris Beard in his 3rd season at Ole Miss. 46-24, coming off a Sweet 16 appearance a year ago. 14th year as a head coach, he's now just 17 wins away from 300. Memphis has played just 1 game. They won it, 1-0 on the year. Penny Hardaway in his 8th year now at Memphis, 155 wins in 8 seasons, his only head coaching stop. 46th meeting all-time, with the Tigers leading the all-time series 30-16. Ole Miss and Memphis first met in basketball in 1910. They faced off regularly in recent years. Rebels leading the all-time series in Oxford 12-6. 2 schools have split the last 10 right down the middle, 5 apiece. Should be a good crowd tonight. We'll see how big. That 8 o'clock tip time is tough for some with a little bit longer drive. Ole Miss would encourage you, if you have tickets that you cannot use, try to put them in the hands of someone who can. For the 4th consecutive year, Mississippi State soccer will host an NCAA tournament game. They'll do so coming up on Saturday against Lipscomb. Kickoff at 5 p.m. for that ball game. Bulldogs coming off a semifinals run in the SEC tournament. Finished the year 12-6-1, 5 wins, 4 losses, and a draw in SEC play. This was the 3rd consecutive year that the Bulldogs have made it to the SEC tournament semifinals. It is their 5th NCAA tournament appearance overall. Nick Zimmerman, in his first year as head coach of the Bulldogs, is one of 2 first-year head coaches that has a team in the postseason. So outstanding work there. If Mississippi State wins against Lipscomb, they would then travel to the number 2 seed in their quadrant, Georgetown, and would take on the winner of Florida State and Samford. While we're on the soccer conversation, Ole Miss has begun a search for new leadership for its soccer program. They parted ways yesterday with Molly Rouse. They struggled mightily. This year, 4-8-3, 0-7-3 in SEC play. And Keith Carter and the team at Ole Miss said, time to go another direction. Got to win, man. Doesn't matter what the sport is. You got to win. At least a little. The Florida Gators, who will be in Oxford on Saturday, are sticking with struggling quarterback DJ Lagway. Interim head coach Billy Gonzalez said that Lagway will take first-team reps in practice this week, but also added that, quote, competition is great for everybody, close quote. Not exactly a vote of confidence. Gonzalez benched Lagway at halftime last week in a 38-7 thumping to Kentucky, replacing him with freshman Trammell Jones. Lagway was 11 of 19 for 83 yards with a touchdown and, count them, 3 interceptions in the first half. He's thrown for 1,762 yards on the year, but his touchdown to interception ratio not quite 1-to-1. 11 scores, 12 thrown to the other team. How about this, though? 20-year-old Lagway, who is a sophomore at Florida, has not committed to being back at Florida next year. Now, who knows if the new head coach at Florida is going to want DJ Lagway back next year. Big things were expected for from Lagway this year, and his sponsorship portfolio confirms it. NIL deals, sponsorship deals, it's a pretty good list, Lance. Gatorade, Jordan Brand, Mercedes-Benz of Gainesville, Lamborghini Orlando, T-Mobile, Beats by Dre, Chipotle, Red Bull, and others. Oh, just signed a deal with Hollister.
Yeah, good for all of them. Sounds like a great investment. Yeah, I mean, that's my opinion. Good for him for getting the money, but man, you throw around a bunch of money for a guy with 11 touchdowns and 12 picks. Has never really done much of anything. The expectations, as you say, are high, but I haven't seen the production on the field. I know that the guy, I doubt he'll be back at Florida. That's what I've heard. But again, man, I mean, this NIL stuff's kind of wild when you get paid for not being good.
Yeah. If you look at the highest earning quarterbacks this year in college football, results on the field aren't very good.
Yeah. Surprising, huh? I mean, really.
Not very good at all. So, Arch Manning, the biggest earner out there, obviously it hasn't been a great year for him, but it also hasn't been a terrible year for him. The expectations were so high for Arch that it's going to be hard to meet those regardless, but man,
he's still played,
he's played pretty well.
He's played pretty well. Yeah, once he's found his way a bit. And number two, I mean, first time starting and
his
a lot of
offensive
pressure.
line
Offensive line.
stinks.
Yeah, I was going to say he was running for his life.
Yeah. One last one for you. Oh, man, the saga in Baton Rouge rolls on. Your final note in this morning's sports update presented by Pearl River Resort. In a legal filing obtained by ESPN, Brian Kelly's lawyers state that LSU is saying that it never, quote, formally terminated, close quote, Kelly, and are now seeking to fire him for cause, which could impact his near $54 million buyout. Kelly is seeking a declaratory judgment that LSU did fire him, and he is entitled to full liquidated damages. LSU representatives had a call. This was from a story with Dan Wetzel. LSU representatives had a call with Coach Kelly's representatives where LSU took the position that Coach Kelly had not been formally terminated, and it informed Coach Kelly's representatives for the very first time that LSU believed grounds for termination for cause existed.
Ooh.
Good luck, LSU.
Yeah.
You fired the guy when he was struggling. Your boosters passed a figurative collection plate in skyboxes while watching LSU lose a football game that they didn't think they should lose. You hated the guy. You were very public about it. And now you just don't want to pay him. Good luck. Good luck. Those are your sports headlines. That's your sports update.
From the Venable Glass.
Hey, how's it going, man?
The news you need.
Every 10, 15 minutes, there's something.
The talk you love.
They really talk about the things that matter.
I'm into all that stuff.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Lance, going to make you a promise. I know it'd make you uncomfortable. I know you'd feel out of place because of your general stance on this. Mm-hmm. But if I win the Mega Ball tonight, you're going to have a pair of those Sitka waders.
I'm in, man. I'll take them. I'm not going to be uncomfortable.
I might even get you two.
Yeah, I'll take two pair, man. Yeah, bring it on.
Oh, goodness.
You've been looking at Sitka waders, hadn't you?
Yeah, I flipped over.
Yeah, I know you did. You have to. I mean, it's like, honestly, Sitka is some of the most amazing stuff. It really is. KU makes some really cool stuff, too, but
yeah.
I just know too many people that wear Sitka.
You made fun of me for that, too.
Well, I mean, I know. I mean, you know, that's kind of Western stuff. But a lot of the guys at camp have Sitka, and it's really, really high-quality stuff. I have a few lightweight things, but, you know, none of the high-end.
Oh, now the truth comes
Like
out.
I got a neck girder and or gaiter, whatever you call them. And
I will say,
some
I
gloves.
got a pair of those the KUIU brush pants before we went to Texas hunting last year.
Yeah.
Those things are awesome.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're going to pay up, and if you use the stuff, it's worth it. I mean, you know, if you're going to be in it and wear it, and I mean, I'm one of those that I don't get to hunt as much as I would like. So I mean, I'm going economical, you know, as much as I can. But if I was in the woods every day, yeah, dude, I'd wear the best stuff I could afford.
Here is your Mississippi Lottery update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. Find them online at mslottery.com. No jackpot winner last night on Powerball, so tomorrow night's drawing will be up to $512 million. $239.1 million, the estimated cash value. Last night's number, 6, 28, 44, 48, 58. Powerball of 23, the power play multiplier is 2. Mega Millions, $900 million tonight. The estimated cash value, $415,300,000. The numbers from the most recent drawing on Friday night, 16, 21, 23, 48, 70, with a mega ball of 5. I'm curious of something, just like looking at the numbers as I was reading them. How often do you think all 5 numbers and the Powerball are all either even numbers or odd numbers versus it being some combination? Just a quirk. I mean, man, I look at these numbers every single morning, and you know they make you think different things, and that kind of made me
trends,
think. Though, tickets for Mega Millions, $5 per play, automatically include a multiplier that can boost non-jackpot prizes up to 5 times. The drawing tonight is at 10 p.m. Grab your tickets from any authorized Mississippi Lottery retailer. We'll keep you updated in the morning. Did you win? Did anybody else win? I guess we won't have to tell you if you won. Yeah. Although, we might just tell you, hey, somebody won, and they're from Mississippi, and you're like, oh, maybe I should look at my ticket. And then you might be like, well, thanks, Richard. Thanks, Lance. You did tell me I won.
You know, as many times as we've done this over the years, I haven't had one person yet text us and say, thank you for reminding me to go look for my ticket. Yeah. And I was the winner. You know, I wish we would have one of those. I'd feel very verified there. And
that would be great.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, man,
I bet there are a bunch
ticket.
of people, though, that have bought a lottery ticket or 3 or 12 because they heard us talking about how big the jackpot was. You might do it today. You might be riding along this afternoon, stop to fill up the gas, and you're like, you know what? Richard and Lance were telling me this morning that thing's up to $900 million. Let me throw $5 at that and just see what happens. And then you'll either celebrate in the morning or be like, I wasted that $5.
Yeah, I thought I had one the last time it was up and went and bought my tickets. I really thought I was going to win the close. What was it, $1 billion? Yeah, I didn't, but
yeah,
I participated. I felt like I was part of the team, you know.
It doesn't happen every time I buy a ticket, but about every third or fourth time I buy a ticket, my level of confidence walking out the door, getting into the car, that, you know what, this actually is the ticket, yeah, and I'm going to be the guy, is off the charts.
Yeah, the last one, I really felt confident. I was just really disheartened when somebody else won it. It was kind of ruined my day, but you gotta move on.
Yeah. Thomas in Greenwood says, man, I'm still wearing an old Carhartt jacket that I've had since high school.
Yeah, he's a big fan of Sitka and Gucci, apparently.
Poor sleeve cuffs are tattered. Okay.
Yeah, I got an old set of coveralls that probably 30 years old, and I can find them about half the time, after the cabin was popped and had to be rebuilt. But I think they're nap hide. It's like an old brand. You can still find it. But I don't know what they made it out of. I think it's the same thing that my mama's couch, I think that was Durahide. I think it was the same thing as that.
Yeah.
You can't tear it up. I mean, it's from outer space, some type of outer space type material.
CC says, how's it going to look to the next coach that they want to hire that they're trying to renege on money they promised to the previous coach? The powers that be at LSU are looking quite foolish.
Escape
and we are
clauses.
all here for it.
Yeah.
Who can get to Memphis from Oxford in an hour?
Cross Force One.
Well, I mean, it depends on where you're going. If you got to go to East Memphis, probably not. My driveway to the airport's an hour and 5 minutes, and that's not pushing it too hard. You got to get to downtown Memphis, probably an hour 15. Good morning, friends. Glad to be with you. MRC on SuperTalk Mississippi. We're back after this.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Coffee, conversations, and clarity. What a great way to start your Mississippi day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Once again, to you, good morning. You're out the door or about to be and are forgetting something like your coat. Turn around, go back inside, grab it. Might need gloves too. And if you got 15 minutes before you have to leave, do yourself a favor. Crank your car. Let it warm up before you head outside. You'll thank me later. I promise. Yeah. It's cold out this morning. We're going to warm up nicely into the mid-50s across the state of Mississippi. Some places even a little warmer than that by the time it is all said and done. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, we're here every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC.
It's funny you say that about a jacket. I ordered one about 10 days ago. It's a Carhartt jacket, and so when you start tracking it, it finally sent me something like 6-7 days in going, okay, it's ready to ship. It's ready to ship. So I'm
said 6-7.
Yeah. So I look at it, and it's CN, and I couldn't tell the town it was in. I thought it was Canada. I'm like, Carhartt, Canada. Yeah, that sounds legit. Eventually, it kind of panned out on the map, and it was China, and it was some town in China I'd never heard of. So I've been watching this for like 3 or 4 days make its way from the hinterlands of China to Shanghai, and then it made it to Chicago last night. Now it's in Crested Butte. Now, I don't know how this stuff works, but I've been totally fascinated to watch this Carhartt jacket make it from halfway around the world. And it's somewhere out west now from Chicago, so I have no idea when I'm going to get this thing. I was really hoping it would be before the cold snap, but
it
didn't happen.
Does not sound like the shipping company is operating at a maximum level of efficiency.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. And then too, with like you said, I saw so many headlights this morning. I get up so early, I never see headlights, But in the drive, all down the street this morning, there was people that had gotten up early to turn their car on, and there was nobody in those cars. But man, I saw headlights everywhere. I'm like, yep, these folks, they knew the recipe for success. You don't want to get in that cold car, man.
No, not at all. This hour of the show brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. The senator from North Mississippi will join us in the next segment this morning. That is Daniel Sparks, represents Itawamba, Prentiss, and Tishomingo counties. We're going to hit a bunch of topics with him. And then Lars Larson will be along to start the 8 o'clock hour this morning. And again, a lot to cover with Lars, get his opinion on a number of things. But the big news this morning, the big news last night, is the end of the government shutdown, or at least more steps toward the end of the government shutdown. Senate voted last night to end the 41-day shutdown, setting the stage for the House to reconvene later this week to pick up the legislation and send it to President Trump's desk. The Senate voted 60-40 to pass a bill that will fund military construction, Veterans Affairs, the Department of Agriculture, and the legislative branch through September 30th of 2026. The rest of government will be funded through January 30th. So there's a chance that, I mean, not that I'm wishing this into being, but knowing the way that that Congress works sometimes, there is theoretically a chance you could have another partial shutdown going into February, but hopefully that won't be the case. 8 members of the Democrat caucus voted for the deal, breaking with Chuck Schumer and the rest of the Dems. The only thing we haven't seen from Chuck Schumer so far is actual tears, which is disappointing because, crying Chuck Schumer could really become a meme. Could become a great meme, actually. We have not seen crying Chuck Schumer yet. We have seen angry Chuck Schumer. We've seen frustrated Chuck Schumer. We've seen yelling Chuck Schumer. We've seen lying Chuck Schumer. We've seen a bunch of versions of Chuck Schumer as his grip on power continues to slip. It's not a train that's coming in your rearview mirror. It's an AOC. An AOC, Chuck. It's coming, and it's coming fast. The Democrats that voted yes, Senators Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, Jackie Rosen of Nevada, Tim Kaine of Virginia, and the Democratic whip, Dick Durbin from Illinois. Angus King, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, also voted yes to end the shutdown. And boy, has it made the progressive side, which, by the way, is the fancy word for the farther left side. Not all the way to the left, but the way more left side of the Democrat Party. So you got kind of the centrist and the moderates, and then you got the progressives, and you got the nut jobs. Although the line between progressives and nut jobs seems to be blurring daily. Progressives are furious. In fact, they are toying with the idea of marching and pulling out one of those old tropes that is convenient at times where they say, "We came this far to only come this far," or something along those lines. They're mad. Mad that Schumer caved. Mad that Tim Kaine and Catherine Cortez Masto and John Fetterman, why do we ever stand behind that guy in the first place, caved to common sense. Common sense that says we can't do anything for our constituents or others if we're on a permanent vacation. 15 times the Senate voted to keep the government closed. Now it's the House's turn. Angry progressives in the House and who are running for Congress next year have slammed the deal, and some have called for Schumer to step down as leader on the Democrat side. Senate passage of the bill sets the stage for the House to be back. 36 hours was the time frame that Mike Johnson gave to his House members to get back and get to work. They sent the call out on Monday night and said, let's go. The lower chamber will vote as early as 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. They asked members of the Rules Committee to get back by tonight to lay the groundwork for the bill. There has not been a vote in the House of Representatives since the 19th of September. That was between week 3 and week 4 of the college football season, if your brain operates on a football calendar like mine does this time of year. President Trump said yesterday that he would abide by the deal, and then went on to say the deal is very good. We're going to be opening up our country very quickly. So what's in it? Because all we've heard is clean CR, clean CR, clean CR. The clean CR simply meant that status quo was going to happen with regard to government spending. As it had been, it was going to be. Well, the final passage, there were some small concessions that Democrats got. Tim Kaine got a guarantee, and you heard William Russell talk about this yesterday, not being wild about this, but he got a guarantee that all those who were fired during the shutdown would be brought back. If you're a smaller government person, as conservatives are supposed to be, that's probably a disappointing development because this was an opportunity to make government a bit smaller. But those people not only are hired back, but they're guaranteed their jobs through, the end of January, I think. February of next year. Here's what it doesn't include, though. And this is where the whole thing falls apart for Democrats because Democrats.
I like that.
I might be onto something right there. Freudian, but I might be onto something. For 6 weeks, and for longer than that, all we've heard is from Democrats, healthcare subsidies, healthcare subsidies, healthcare subsidies, extension of the ACA subsidies. So, of course, this bill that's now headed to the House that is going to finally get them back to work included healthcare subsidies because that's the only thing that they were steady on the entire time. We're not coming back without extension of the healthcare subsidies. Is it in there? Swing and a miss. It is not. It is not there. And yet, they're coming back to work. Daniel Sparks joins us next.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
You're waking up to what matters. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
A couple of quick messages on the C Spire text line as I welcome in my first guest this morning, Senator Daniel Sparks. The C Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395. Again, 601-879-4395. You don't have to wait for the Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. They are online right now, cspire.com. C Spire customer inspired. Tim in Ridgeland says, New Hampshire Senator Jean Shaheen, Ole Miss master's degree, and married into a family from Como, Mississippi. I did not know that. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate the tip. And then one more thing. This is from a retired Justice Department employee. Sends us a message, says, it seems obvious to me that you have a few Democrats in the Senate both to get the government open, vote to get the government open, and then the rest of them can stand back and be angry and upset. It's all a political game. I worked for the U.S. Department of Justice for 37 years, now retired. They've been through so many shutdowns, it's ridiculous. A week ago, I think I would have agreed with that. In fact, we even talked about a story last week where there was kind of a prediction that Chuck Schumer was going to give a few the green light to get a deal done after the election, and he was going to stand there and stomp his feet and bang on the lectern and act like he always acts, knowing that they needed to get back to work. Senator Sparks, as you observe what's happening in D.C., is that a plausible theory, or do you think that they genuinely had 8 defectors to get this deal across the finish line?
I think plausible is more likely than anything genuine coming out of D.C. It's kind of
our delegation notwithstanding, of course.
That's correct. But the big thing to me, of course, today being Veterans Day, kind of highlights the fact that there were some votes and some intended, positions, certainly on the Republican Party, was to pay the military during this time. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that, people say they're going to get back pay, they're going to get back pay. Well, most Americans, good, bad, or indifferent, live from paycheck to paycheck. And when you go 2 months without a paycheck, I wouldn't want to go 2 months without a paycheck.
Nope.
It would certainly crimp my life. But that I do want to wish a happy Veterans Day to all our veterans and be thankful for their service. But it really rings hollow from politicians when they have strung them out for 2 months and not paid them.
I appreciate you doing that. I had that on my list of things to do in the 8 o'clock hour, Veterans Day. A lot of folks with the day off today, and deservedly so. So hard to believe we're getting close. We're at November 11th, which means about 6-7 weeks from right now. I can't believe I did that. Can't believe I did it. Sorry, you don't have young kids at your house right now. The whole 6-7 thing is absolutely out of control. There is a child who is driving along whose parent has this program on right now that's going, he just said 6-7.
You've made their day, though, Richard. That's great.
Oh, I don't know. I'm glad my kids are not listening right now. But in about that amount of time, you and your colleagues will reconvene at the House and get the 2026 legislative session going. We know that the school choice conversation is one that has dominated the offseason, if you will. But let's set that aside for a second and kind of look at some legislative priorities, especially on the Senate side of things. Where does that stand as we move toward the new session?
Well, I think, education always tops the list. It's the number one expenditure for state government. So certainly that's always in the forefront. But, on the Senate side, there is a lot of look, and if you look at higher education, with IHL, looking at our colleges, what we're generating. I happen to chair economic and workforce development. That is something that we're very excited. In the last, year and a half, we've had record-breaking, shattering investment in the state of Mississippi, multiple projects announced. And each time I see one of those, I'm excited. We look at the top line number, this many million or this many billion recently is going to be invested. But then I look at the workforce. How many jobs are expected? What kind of jobs are they? Do we have those trained people in the state of Mississippi? And Accelerate Mississippi is doing an excellent job. A lot of partnership with our community colleges, with K-12 in preparing people for the workforce. Because ultimately, it's, what can you earn? That dictates a lot of times where you live. It dictates, what opportunities you're going to have, you and your family. And we're doing a much better job in focusing on training and preparing people to be ready for high wage, high demand jobs. And it's very difficult. I had a conversation last night with someone who had been trained in coding. And, 10 years ago, we were telling everybody, if you'll just go learn how to code, you'll never want for anything. And that's one of the things AI is probably going to replace. So we've got to be more nimble. And our community colleges are at the forefront of that, of being able to pivot and to put classes together and to train. So,
but it's coders who are developing a lot of that AI technology.
That's putting them out of business. That's exactly right. That is just the nature of technology in today's world. So, we have jobs that are coming online. Aluminum Dynamics being one of the large ones. The Marshall County project that we did. Some of these special session items. Yeah. But you're seeing a long laundry list of investments that are 40 jobs, 50 jobs, 100 jobs. Those are the things in our community that often have more stickability. We're always excited if you see 2,000 employees, but when we see businesses expand, that's what we want to see in Mississippi. So from a tax environment, regulatory environment, the Senate has a the legislature has a one-door task force that Chairman Donnie Bell on the House side and I are co-chairing. And we're working with our executive agencies that when people come in seeking something from the state, that we're making sure that they're being served in a manner that gets them off of state benefits. There's been some blowback that, this one-door policy is to expand benefits. It's not my job to expand benefits. It's my job to make sure the dollars we spend in benefits actually have an ROI. It's not supposed to be a perpetual cycle of federal or state government dependence. It's supposed to be a pathway to independence. So we're working with the folks at Employment Security, at Rehab Services, at the Department of Human Services, again, the Community College Board. That is how we're focused on filling these jobs that are coming to the state of Mississippi, and also recruiting new jobs, because when we sit down and meet with people who want to invest in the state of Mississippi, they know the tax environment, they know the they know these things, they're professionals. What they want to know is, do we have a trained or trainable workforce, and what is speed to market? That's one of the things in the state of Mississippi from a permitting standpoint, working with DEQ, working with other state agencies. We want to make sure that people, when they invest in the state of Mississippi, we can be quicker, we can be, again, more nimble to train, and that's where I think Accelerate and the workforce side can be very impactful in people's everyday lives, and that's one of the big focuses on our side. Additionally, government restructure. I mean, we see this, federal government dysfunction. We still have some of that at the state level. It's not about eliminating pins. There's a lot of the jobs you were mentioning that will be reinstated that have been taken away under the shutdown. Government doesn't run lean. We don't run efficiently. It's true. So we're trying to find places to where we have overlap. It's wasteful. We have a limited amount of resources in the state of Mississippi. We have to have a balanced budget, and we have an unlimited amount of demand. So what we want to make sure we're doing is we're spending our money in a fashion that we're getting the best bang for our buck. So, sure, the education piece, agriculture is a big focus in the state of Mississippi. So much of that is driven at the federal level. We understand that, but we want to do what we can do to have a good environment, in an agriculture state that we produce so much. So there's a lot of things that we're working on that side.
So last week you were involved in one of those acronym meetings, the JLBC, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, and we were going through that story last week, and it was a series of revenue is up, revenue is up, revenue is up, revenue is up, and then you get to the end of the story and it's like, and revenue estimates are down slightly for the state of Mississippi. Basically a level budget year over year. What led to actually having that number adjusted down? Just I think it was $500,000 down, maybe 150. I'm sorry, not thousand, 500 million, or a little less than. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were. It was small though in terms of a $7.5 billion budget.
Yeah, there's a change in environment again based on the tax code, and I've had conversations this week with Secretary of State Watson and appreciate his feedback. I asked him, because this came up just lightly in the JLBC meeting, is how many C Corps have converted to LLCs? Because what we're seeing is corporate taxes are down. Some of our other taxes are up, sales tax, retail tax, income tax. But from the standpoint of people converting from a corporation to an LLC, that's responsive potentially to the income tax elimination. So we have to factor that in. So things like that are impactful. Cost of goods are up, so corporate profits may be down a little bit. We have seen inflationary pressures that some of that's beginning to balance out.
We got more coming up with Senator Daniel Sparks. He represents District 5. That's Itawamba, Prentiss, and Tishomingo counties. He's chair of the Economic and Workforce Development Committee and vice chair of Judiciary B as well. We're back with more right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
From the Seabrook
segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
When they ask where you heard it, you tell them.
I know you heard it right here.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Senator Daniel Sparks is my guest this morning, kind enough to spend a few minutes with us and hitting on a bunch of different topics. One of the things that the state of Mississippi is waiting on an answer on is a ruling from the Supreme Court, this Mississippi mail-in ballot case. I was kind of rereading that story last night, and there's a lot to take in there. Where are we? Is this something that you've been following or following closely?
It's something we're certainly aware of. This came out of the COVID era, that mail-in ballots being received after the election day that were in the mail that could be counted up to 5 days, and the Trump administration had filed suit in this matter. And I'll go back to kind of my position, I guess, on voting. I'm a in-person day of voting. I'm excited about voting day. Have been that way since I was 18 and earlier. But there are pushes to have alternative manners of voting. We see it across the country. No ID voting, which I certainly am not for. Right. I think in person with ID on the voting day is the best way. Certainly, we have veterans. We have people who are older, who are disabled. There were things set up so that people could vote in a manner that was not in person on election day. And across the country, each state kind of runs their own elections, and we're not big on federal election law, and I agree with that. But that's the big concern is that when you have a deviation from what is, quote, the norm, and we have people that work shift work, whether it's at Ingalls on the coast or Mueller Brass and Fulton in my district, that may work a 7 to 7 shift. So having some availability to vote is out there. We already have some form of early voting in the sense that if you are going to be out of the district, that you can go in and you can vote. You can tell them, hey, this is the reason I need to vote in that 14-day window before the election. So this added a 5-day window just to receive those ballots. And I do think the court very well may strike this down. And, it also causes an issue because as people who run in elections, you don't want to wait 5 more days if you can help it. I mean, there are people right now facing runoffs and, they've got several more weeks to work. But, you'd love to have results timely. We see precincts that always turn their numbers in. You can, be within an hour of polls closing, and they're going to have their numbers in. And then there's some precincts that are going to be 8-10 hours later, and that's frustrating. But those are all run locally. You have local elected election commissioners who often make or break those type of situations. But we want consistency, and the main thing we want everybody who's eligible to vote to show up, show an ID, and vote. And I don't think that's asking too much.
There's another case before the Supreme Court right now, and I've asked a number of legislators and people in and around politics about this. The Louisiana versus Calais case that most people anticipate the Supreme Court is going to side with the state of Louisiana, that will allow redistricting not based on racial lines or majority-minority districts. And I've asked a number of people whether or not there is an appetite within the legislature here in Mississippi to, depending on the outcome of that Supreme Court case, redraw congressional district lines here in Mississippi. And obviously the subtext of that question is, do you do something with Congressional District 2, where Benny Thompson has been entrenched for a long time, and create possibly a situation where you have 4 Republican congressmen from Mississippi? And most everybody has said, I don't really see much of an appetite for that. We did see a post yesterday from Shad White, the sometimes outspoken state auditor, and he said last week in Mississippi special elections, Democrats flipped 2 seats in the state Senate, ending the supermajority for Republicans. This happened because of racial gerrymandering pushed on by state courts. It's the same kind of gerrymandering that has kept Benny Thompson in office for years. Louisiana's gone to the Supreme Court, etc. The legislature should redraw the lines. Where do you stand on that? Is that a conversation that is happening with you and your Senate colleagues?
Well, for the last couple of years, we've paid attention to this because we had to draw districts for the legislature in a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of debate.
When we went from 5 to 4, right?
Well, even for the state legislators, that since I've been in the legislature, that there's a lot of discussion. Obviously, people talk about the black voting age population, drawing districts, the number of Democrats, the number of Republicans. And there was a case out of one of the Carolinas that Alito wrote the opinion that talked about partisan gerrymandering versus racial gerrymandering. Racial gerrymandering, and it, to a great degree, is a violation of the Voting Rights Act if you're drawing lines specifically based on race, and then the courts turn around and ask you to draw districts based on race, which seems counterintuitive. But the Alito decision talked about partisan gerrymandering, so Republican, Democrat. It's unfortunate that in a lot of places, and Mississippi being one of them, that often Republican Democrat is interchangeable with race. Now, certainly as a Republican Party, we don't want that. We believe in that conservatives run across all racial lines, all demographics. There are conservatives in Mississippi, one of the most religious states in the country, one of the most benevolent states in the country. We believe that the party of conservatism can grow. And that's across racial boundaries. And that's the goal that we need to have as a Republican Party. But as it comes to drawing the lines, ultimately people want to be reelected. And they draw the lines around the areas that are strongest for them and want to get rid of the ones that are weakest for them. Right. We see it so bad on the federal level. Our congressional lines are so gerrymandered, particularly in states that have multiple, much more than 4 congressmen. And that's how you get polarized personalities. That's how you get people like AOC or Elian Omar and some on our side that they know they're going to be reelected because they've drawn such a district that the ridiculous things that they say online, the fights that they pick, the positions that they take, they're going to get reelected. So they're not really accountable because you've drawn them such a gerrymandered district. In the state, if we'll look and see what the language of Louisiana says. Obviously, some people say we could have 4 Republican congressmen. We could also have 2 and 2. Because when you divide the state, and we have one of the highest or the highest proportion in the black voting age population of anybody in the nation. But I do believe people want good representation, people that are in touch with them, that don't go to D.C. and buy into whatever, is going on there and ultimately lose contact with their district. Because if I look at District 2, there's a lot of struggles there.
No question.
Congressman Thompson has been there for many, many years, and there have been years that the Democrats have been in control of the White House and particularly of the Congress, and yet they still struggle. I want good for all Mississippians. When we talk about economic development and workforce, we're talking about across the state. We're not talking about in congressional districts 1, 3, and 4. And so that's what we want, to have a delegation that we work with. Our delegation is very helpful to the state in those areas. But, yes, I think you could look at redrawing those districts. You also get people that didn't want to be drawn into CD2. That was some of the big discussions when we drew those lines a few years ago. But coming out of the Louisiana decision, I'm hoping they set a baseline that you're not required to draw racial districts, and potentially the very thing they come out with will contradict what they just made the state do. I mean, we just went through several legislative special elections because of a lawsuit. And there's another case out there that deals with who has standing. Do these groups who sue every time you draw, it wouldn't matter what districts you draw, they're going to sue. Do they actually have standing as an organization to sue? Because the next time Mississippi draws legislative districts, they will sue again. And I would encourage people who say, oh, well, they're just doing it wrong, that's why they're suing. Go look and see how many Democrats voted for our maps, the legislative maps, when we drew them 2 years ago. I believe there were only 2 Democrats that didn't vote for the map. And that was a question I asked during the debate this past year. And, the minority leader, who's a good friend of mine, he kind of had to grin, and he voted for it. So the very plan he voted for and the majority of his colleagues voted for is the plan that they were standing up there saying, well, the courts, we have victory. And, last week they were talking about the victory that they've had. Well, yes, we lost 2 seats in the Mississippi State Senate. Now, in reality, we still have a majority. One of the ways I look at it, it's going to make Republicans be more efficient with what we do in legislation because we don't have the ability to suspend the rules.
Forgive me for interrupting.
Yeah.
quickly the difference between a supermajority and a majority?
Supermajority and a majority. Obviously, a majority is you have more than half.
Yeah.
You have to have 3/5 to pass money bills, finance appropriation bills. 3/5 of 52. You have to have 2/3 of 52 to suspend the rules. Now, all the kids out there, unfortunately, nothing was 6/7, but the big issue is you need 35, and we have 34. So, but again, we shouldn't. Since I've been here, we suspend the rules probably more often than we should. Anytime we suspend the rules, you might as well put an asterisk by it and say we either misanticipated or we messed up, or we fought amongst ourselves to the extent that we had to go back and suspend the rules. I hope that we have an opportunity to work better with the governor, with the House, not to need to suspend the rules, which means you got to plan better, execute a game plan.
Will there be less animus between the Senate and the House this year?
I always hope there's less animus. Man, there's some good guys on that end of the hall. The Speaker and their team, they're mission-driven. They're great with communication. On our side, we got people that represent bigger districts. They got to be more reasonable sometimes.
Daniel, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Richard.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Super Talk Mississippi.
You heard it here first.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Here comes the news.
Mentioned it this morning when we were talking about some of the things that have happened on this day in history in the 6 o'clock hour. 11 a.m. on November the 11th, 1918, marked the end of World War I. And it ushered in what became known as Armistice Day. Armistice Day has since evolved into Veterans Day, a day that we honor the men and women who have served in the United States military, all of its branches, in defense of our country in both wartime and in peacetime. You heard Senator Sparks just a moment ago wish a happy Veterans Day to all of those who have served. One of the cool things that happens this time of year, because we are in football season, is most colleges and universities have some sort of Armed Forces Recognition Day, a Veterans Day of sort that is right around November 11th. Ole Miss did that this past weekend. The field was painted. The Ole Miss script was in red, white, and blue. The end zones, one was blue with white stars on it. The other was red and white stripes. The Ole Miss band had an incredible halftime performance in which they honored those who have served in the military. And it's a day to reflect, right? I mean, maybe you've got a family member right now who is serving at home or abroad. You have a mom or a dad, a husband or a wife, a grandfather or a grandmother, an aunt or an uncle who has chosen to serve. And so for those of you who have served, from those of us who haven't or perhaps have served ourselves, we say thank you for your willingness. We don't have a draft in the United States. It is voluntary service, and so whatever the reason that you were called into service, whether it was the best opportunity for you because of what it might afford your future, because if it was something that was important in your family, because you had parents or grandparents who had served, whether it was just an undying love for your country and something that you felt like was the best way to give back, we say thank you. I had a grandfather that served in the Air Force, another grandfather that served in the United States Coast Guard. I call him a cousin. He's actually my wife's cousin that serves in the Army right now, attended West Point. One of the coolest things, Lance, that I've ever had the opportunity to do was to attend John's graduation from the United States Military Academy at West Point. And it was an outdoor graduation ceremony. It was in May. Just when regular graduation ceremonies happen at colleges and universities all across the country. And you expect the weather to be pretty good in May. Sometimes you get a little bit of a cold snap, right? I mean, I've seen them in Oxford where it's a little bit cool. Sometimes it rains. You don't expect it to be frigid and raining, and yet that somehow almost made it more magical.
Yeah.
Being at West Point in Michie Stadium, seeing the long gray line as they marched in and were seated, and heard an address at the time from the Secretary of Defense. It was just a really, really incredible moment, and it kind of reinstills faith in the future when you see those young men and women that may have come in as boys and girls and are leaving as lieutenants and are headed off to all the corners of the world to serve or to continue their training or whatever it is. It's just a really special thing, and saying thank you seems like hardly enough, but sometimes it's the best of what we can do is say thank you and stop and just for a moment recognize those that have chosen to serve.
I have a cousin that was a colonel in the Marine Corps, retired, but toward the end of his career, he was the head of the plebes at Annapolis and had an opportunity to go stay there on site, on campus, and watch and be a part of everything that was going on. And I remember, I think I was 13. It's like, man, they do a lot of running.
Yes.
They do a lot of running.
And usually it's not just in tennis shoes and shorts and no shirt.
No, they are looking good running.
There's a ruck there usually.
Yeah. But, yeah, that was the coolest thing ever. And then, they had where all the ships kind of come in, and there's a big, grounds there, almost like intramural fields that go right to the water. But just beautiful the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, really, it reinstilled a lot of faith in my country, watching and seeing and just kind of being a fly on the wall for a minute at that young of an age. Thank you all that have served and who are serving now and who intend to serve in the future this great country of ours.
Yeah. C-Spire text line, although I was never deployed, I am proud to have served in the Army. I am even more proud of my dad for having served in the Air Force and serving his country in Vietnam. I am equally as proud of my granddad serving in the Coast Guard during World War II. Amen and amen. And I would just say to you, friend, you don't have to put that qualifier on the beginning of your message there where you say, although I was never deployed. Because when you joined the Army, you made the commitment to do whatever was asked of you. And if you were not asked to deploy during that service time, that does nothing to belittle your service time and your commitment to the United States Army and the United States of America. God bless you. Thank you for your service. And to all of those of you out there who have served or are serving, we owe you an eternal debt of gratitude. 8 o'clock hour is next.
What can be offered you?
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Information.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Glad to be with you on this Tuesday morning, the 11th of November, Veterans Day. Said it before the break, we'll say it again. To those of you who have served or are serving, we owe you an eternal debt of gratitude. We thank you for your willingness to voluntarily serve the United States military, our country. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Happy to welcome my friend Lars Larson to the program, host of the Lars Larson Show. You can hear it most nights here on SuperTalk, Mississippi, starting at 6 p.m. Lars, sometimes memes that are on the internet really do tell the truth. I saw this one. It's a man holding a poster that looks like it would be in a protest, and it says, the Affordable Care Act, ACA, also known as Obamacare, was created by Barack Obama. It was passed without a single Republican vote. It requires people to have health insurance or pay a penalty and provides subsidies to make insurance affordable. It is set to expire now. How is it that the Republicans are to blame?
Somehow the Republicans are to blame because when the Democrats went in and metaphorically, I don't want to use that violent imagery, metaphorically put a gun to the head of America, of their constituents, of everybody who flies on an airplane, everybody who gets social welfare benefits, everybody who wants the federal government as compromised as our federal government is. And there are lots of things I would change about it, but we're paying them to be in operation and they need to be in operation for the things they do. Would I like them to do a lot fewer things? Sure. But when the Democrats said, you will either give us these expanded Obamacare subsidies that were created during the pandemic is now long over, and we don't need to do it anymore. But the Democrats understand this is going to be about $300 to $350 billion, $350 billion a year that flows straight to the hospital industrial complex. Now, does some of it actually get to patients who are on Medicaid or on Obamacare? Yeah, some of it does. But most of it just goes to the hospitals. In fact, in the average year, about 40% of people on Obamacare, they don't seek out a doctor. Nothing's wrong with them. If it ain't broke, don't go fix it. Yeah. So they wanted that money. They also wanted $200 billion to cover health insurance for illegal aliens, which they lied about thoroughly on the mainstream media. Said, no, we're not. No, you can't have people getting Medicaid if they're illegal aliens. Why, that would be illegal, which makes about as much sense as arguing that murder doesn't happen in America because murder is illegal, or people don't overdose on heroin because shooting heroin is illegal. So they wanted all this, and they thought, we don't have any other leverage point. Let's create a leverage point. Let's shut down the United States government for the longest shutdown in American history, 41 days. And that's exactly what they did. And Richard, I did, thanks to, and I will give credit to a writer at The Federalist that I admire a lot, who did a deep dive into the numbers and said, well, what awful things are going to happen if these expanded Obamacare subsidies disappear? 75% of the people on Obamacare who enjoy it today will have to pay more. Do you know how much the average more is for 75% of them? $62.50 a month. Now, is that inconvenient? Yeah. But right now, Obamacare expanded subsidies are paying almost 90% of the tab. So, in other words, the government is going to pay for almost all the health insurance. I got to tell you, Richard, my health insurance, and I don't go to the doctor very often. I get a checkup twice a year because I've got diabetes. But other than that, and I get a couple of meds that cost about $10 because I got slightly elevated blood pressure, mostly because of the Democrats.
I can't imagine why.
I got a blood sugar problem. But other than that, I don't go to the doctor much. So the company I work for pays about $15,000 a year. Tina and I throw in another $5,000 or $6,000 a year to cover us for health insurance, and we're paying for all those illegal aliens you see in the. And I know I've kind of rattled on, but if you drop from 88% of health insurance is being paid for by the federal government under Obamacare to 78%, is that a big catastrophe worthy of shutting down the government?
Doesn't seem so, and messaging is so incredibly important. We know that because messaging sways the population. And sometimes we're dealing in semantics. And I don't think this is a semantic argument. We were having this conversation yesterday. When we talk about extending the subsidies, Democrats use the phrase lower your cost of health care. And I guess ultimately you're talking about more money versus less money. It's not lowering anything. The subsidies are not lowering the cost of health care. They are simply covering up the cost of how expensive healthcare has become in this environment that we live in right now.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like if you said to your son or daughter when they turn 16 or 17, they get a driver's license, and you say, well, I know insurance is expensive, especially for young people. I paid through the nose when I was 16, and I know 16 and 17-year-olds pay through the nose today. But if mom or dad said, look, if you go out and work and you pay half the insurance on the car you want to drive or driving our car, we'll pay the other half. That doesn't lower the cost of insurance. No. It just means somebody else is paying half the bill. And
I don't know about you, but I do a lot of subsidizing in my home. My wife and I together do a lot of subsidizing for our children in our home.
Believe me, we subsidize all the time here at the Larson household. When my granddaughter and her sister show up at our house, they're 9 and 5. They go to Nana's cupboard and get a couple of those reusable grocery bags and fill them and then take them home. And why? Because they understand that these are the goodies mom can't afford. But I do want to go to that for a moment because remember the key promises made by the great constitutional scholar from Chicago, Barack Hussein Obama. He said, number one, if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. That was a big fat lie, and he knew it because everybody found out after Obamacare passed, you don't get to keep the health care plan you love. Number two, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. And that, again, was a big fat lie from B.O. B.O. lied through his teeth on that one. But the third big lie was, we're going to lower the cost of health care. Well, I've seen these great charts where you say, what was the cost? Healthcare was going up kind of like this before Obamacare. And then right at the point where Obamacare passed with, again, not a single Republican vote in the House or Senate, the cost curve did this. And it continued to do that. So Obamacare accentuated the rise in the cost, and it was not a small amount. It was gigantic. And Richard, here's the secret. Subsidizing anything makes it more expensive in dollars. And I could give you any number of examples where that is true and show you where there are no subsidies and costs go down. I bought my first cell phone in the late 1980s. The cell phone industry, for the most part, had no subsidies at all. The first cell phone that I ever saw as a reporter at a press conference in 1985 was a bag phone. I mean, it was the big, clunky, suitcase kind of phone. And it was $1,800 when $1,800 was worth a lot more. The Gordon Gecko phone, the brick phone, was $3,500, which would be a lot today. It was especially a lot back then. So did that industry get subsidized? Nope. What can you do now? You can go down to Walmart, because when I'm in there, I use this as an example. If I want to buy a plain Jane smartphone, what can I pick one up for at Walmart? About $30. A slightly nice $150. And people say, no, smartphones cost $1,500 and they come from Steve Jobs or the late Steve Jobs. No, if you just want a plain Jane smartphone. In fact, if you want just a plain Jane phone, I think you can probably pick one up for $10. So what happened to the cost of phones? Dropped like a rock because the industry had an incentive to bring the cost down. And if you want a medical example, lots of people get LASIK surgery these days. LASIK surgery back in the day, I've never had it, but it was $20,000 or $30,000 per eye. Yeah. Now, what is it now? The basic LASIK surgery is a few $100s per eye. Well, how did they get from tens of thousands of dollars per eye to a few $100? Now, if you get the more elaborate stuff with mapping of your eyeball and all that stuff, it can cost a bit more, but it is gigantically less expensive. How did you bring the cost down? You basically told the industry, as long as the cost is $10,000 or $20,000 an eye, you're not going to have too many customers, because you're going to have very, very rich customers, because health insurance does not pay for LASIK. But if you say you want to sell a lot of it, bring the cost down and the quality up. That's not what happened to health care in America. Health care has gone up in cost, and Obamacare made it worse. And now the Democrats want these giant subsidies. Well, here's the thing. They agreed to the law that runs out on New Year's Eve this year, December 31, 2025. Those gigantically expanded subsidies go away. And after them, the American taxpayer will still be subsidizing 75% of the health care, of the health premiums, I should say, the premiums for the insurance. So why do we need to spend another few $100 billion when we're trillions in debt?
I think I can summarize what you said. Non-subsidized competition drives down cost. Subsidized,
there you go.
Lack of competition, there's no incentive to drive down cost. We'll continue our conversation with Lars Larson, host of the Lars Larson radio show on SuperTalk Mississippi, right after this.
From the Venable Glass.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
The monitor switch lets you hear
Breaking news.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Back with you, Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. Lars Larson is my guest. There's so much more I want to get to, but I was stuck thinking during the break about subsidies and the way they work within a pseudo-free market. We know the airline industry is heavily subsidized. If you took away all the subsidies, would airlines figure out a way to operate? If you took away subsidies for farmers, would farmers figure out a way to operate? If you took away subsidies from the pharmaceutical industry, would they figure out a way to operate? We profess capitalism and free market ideas, but we don't really practice them as a country. Would it work if it was truly a non-subsidized free market?
Richard, you got right in my lane, because I love this idea, and I know my farmer friends, and I have a lot of farmer and rancher friends, personal friends of 20 years, and they love getting those checks.
Absolutely.
But would they be able to do it? Can I give you one great example where it's a historic example? It's a culture much like ours, New Zealand. New Zealand, about a couple of decades ago, hit the wall financially, kind of like we're about to hit the wall financially. And they did two things. They said to all their farmers, the farmers, and New Zealand grew a lot of food back then, but not nearly as much as they grow today. And why? Because the government said, we want you to do this, and we want you to, we want you to, produce these kinds of products, and they subsidized them. I got to tell you something. If I suddenly got told by the radio station, every time you have a female caller on, and as you know, female callers are less frequent than male callers, you get an extra $500, Lars. Do you know what? As of today, I would be only talking to women from this point forward. Because if they told me every female caller is worth $500, boy, I'd be doing topics to draw those in. I'd change my behavior. Now, that's not literally what would happen, but in New Zealand, that's what happened. So when they hit the wall, the government went to the New Zealand farmers and said, guess what? We're out of money and we can't subsidize you anymore. So you best find something to grow or something to raise, in the way of livestock that makes money. Do you know what they did? Those farmers went out, God bless them, and they started raising crops and planting things and raising livestock. They now are a bigger net exporter of food than they ever were before. Well, what was holding them back? What was holding them back was subsidies. The government said, if you do this, you get the check. If you don't do that, you don't get the check. And do you know where we've done that to human beings in a very evil way? America just about destroyed the black family, because in the 1960s, that evil SOB, racist SOB, Lyndon Baines Johnson, said to young black women, in effect, kind of like you summarized my very long explanation of economics, and you did it very well. Here's the explanation here. Young lady, you're pregnant. Get married, we don't send the check. Have a live-in boyfriend who actually provides for some of your support, we don't send the check. But if you stay pregnant with small children and no boyfriend and no husband to be your partner and help raise those children properly, we'll send you a check. We'll give you subsidized housing. We'll give you what was food stamps back then, now SNAP. We'll give you what was welfare back then, now TANF. And we'll give you all that. But just don't get married and don't get a partner in life to help you raise those kids. We will pay you to destroy the black family. And what they were effectively saying to young black men, now they also did it to young white families as well, but this did particular damage to the black community. So I focus on that, even though somebody's going to say, well, they said the same thing to young unmarried white women. Yes, they did, but it didn't devastate the white family nearly so bad as it did black Americans. Black Americans had largely intact families and an intact community leading up to 1960. After that, we blew it up by paying people to do something wrong. And that was, you have a baby on the way, you should probably get a husband. Now, I know there are going to be people who say, oh, Lars, you must believe in trad wives. Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, the traditional roles are breadwinner, homemaker, and they are both roles that are very important. We blew up an entire part of our country by doing this, in particular to black Americans, through government subsidies. We will pay you not to get married. Now, do you think that did a generation of young black children who were growing up in a single parent household learning that dependence on the government was the way to live your entire life? Did that do anybody any good, America or black families? Did it, Richard?
It's created a multi-generational, subsidy-dependent, vicious cycle that is almost impossible to break. And we see that here in Mississippi and other places as well. if you're going to get a compromise, both sides have to give. There are some that said the Republicans made a mistake in giving in to Tim Kaine's demand to rehire the workers that were laid off. If you believe in smaller government, and this was an opportunity for the Trump administration to make the government a little bit smaller, but Democrats had to give up the extension of ACA subsidies to get the government back online. It was really fascinating to me to see some politicians yesterday like, we just didn't realize that the Republicans were so dug in on this. Like Tim Kaine even said that. He's like, it became evident. I was focused on Virginia elections and didn't realize how dug in they were on this. Was what Republicans gave up a bigger win than what Democrats had to give up?
I think it's small potatoes compared to what the Democrats were demanding, that we spend another $1/3 trillion at a time when the federal government overspends its budget by not quite $2 trillion a year. I always tell people, because they hear about this debate and they mix up deficit and debt and all the rest of that, just make it simple. The federal government takes in about $4.5 trillion a year, spends about $6.5 trillion a year. Think of your friend who makes $45,000 a year. And you say, but he spends about $65,000 a year. And you say, that can't work out well, not long term. And Everybody knows if you're making $4,000 a month, but spending $6,000 a month, you either have a rich Dutch uncle somewhere or you are going to be deeply in debt. And that's exactly what we've been doing. So when the Democrats say, let's spend another, between all the changes they wanted another $1.4 trillion over the next 10 years. And that was insane. And what the Republicans did, and they gave things up before they passed the CR, the status quo budget. They said, we're not going to ask for reductions in the federal government budget, even though we'd like to. We're not going to ask for all of our pet projects. We're going to give you a clean CR. The Democrats then walked in and said, nope, add $1.4 trillion to it, or we're not voting for it. So the Republicans had already compromised. And you're right. Would it have been nice to say those people that got fired, let's leave some of them fired and bring back the ones we actually need, the air traffic controllers, get the military paychecks running again and again. Happy Veterans Day. But yeah, would it have been better if we'd done that? Sure. But I don't think the Republicans gave up much. You can always fire somebody next year. And I think Trump has already reduced the size of the federal government by a couple of 100,000 jobs. I don't think any sensible person thinks our federal government needs 2 million plus employees to do the essential work of the federal government that's outlined in the Constitution, because we got to get rid of all the other garbage that's accumulated over decades. And I mean garbage.
Lars Larson, 2 minutes left. Supreme Court has heard arguments with regard to tariffs. Really, if you boil it down, it's more arguments about presidential power. This is a really, really big pending decision. And most people look at this and say it kind of looks like the Supreme Court is going to rule against Donald Trump. Trump says that's going to cost us $3 trillion that we would have to return in collected tariffs. Is there any scenario where the Supreme Court sides with Donald Trump and allows tariffs to stay in place and gives him the ability to continue to impose tariffs under some of these emergency acts?
Yeah, there is. There are a couple of ways to go about it. He has other pieces of authority that are in law, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've talked to a bunch of lawyers. They say the Supreme Court, or the people who say Trump didn't have the authority under this economic emergency law to impose the tariffs. So the court could take it away, but then he can impose the tariffs through other laws that are already on the books. I mean, we've got lots and lots of excess laws. So it sounds like he'll be able to still do that. Would we maybe have to return some of the money? Sure. Do you know who paid the money? It wasn't China. I mean, I know we always think of it as China or Malaysia or wherever. The money was paid by the people who imported the goods, which means all that money would go back to, so if you're sitting in San Diego or you're sitting on the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of America, by the way, and you brought some goods in, you paid the tariff. So the money would get paid back to you. Not a good result. I don't think the government should have to do it. But if the Supreme Court orders it, then Trump can go about it a different way. And he has the legal tools to do it.
Lars, our time is always too short. I enjoy the conversation, the back and forth, and I look forward to visiting with you again soon.
Anytime, Richard. Take care.
Keep up the good work, my friend. Lars Larson, host of the Lars Larson Show. You can hear it right here on Super Talk Mississippi, weeknights, starting at 6 p.m. We've got half an hour left with you and plenty to get to. Did you see the protest, what borderlined on anarchy, in Berkeley, California, just last night? It was an event that was very similar, at least in terms of content, to what happened in Oxford, Mississippi, not quite 2 weeks ago. We're back with you right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
From the Seabrook,
Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Let's get on with the show. Check it out.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Stopped by yesterday and saw my friends at Belk Ford and Oxford Toyota. Needed to get an oil change and have the tires rotated, and visited with them. And I was like, anything we need to be pushing right now? Anything we need to let people know about? They're like, yeah. 0% financing for 60 months on brand spanking new Ford F-150s. And if 60 months isn't exactly what you are looking for, a lot of options where you can combine rebates and low interest rates for time frames up to 84 months. And you might say, 84 months, I don't want to finance something for that long. You get a big rebate, 4.9% APR for 84 months. It might get into the vehicle that you're looking for. Maybe just trying to lower the payment. Maybe you don't want that lower payment, and you can take advantage of free money. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen 0% financing. 0% for 60 months on new F-150s at Belk Ford and Oxford Toyota. Really good selection on the lot. Got a bunch of colors, got a bunch of trim levels, whether you're looking for the XLT or the Lariat or the King Ranch or the Platinum or the Limited. Just so many options to choose from. I would appreciate it if you would tell them that you heard about them on Mornings with Richard Cross, that I told you that you should stop by and see them. I promise you they will take great care of you. Belk Ford, Oxford Toyota, Highway 6 West in Oxford. It doesn't really matter where in Mississippi you live. You can reach out to them via the web, you can call them, or you can stop by when you are in town. Maybe you're coming in from the Florida game this weekend. Give yourself a few extra minutes and stop by and see my good friends at Belk Ford and Oxford Toyota. Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're here for every part of your financial journey. Looking to manage your personal finances? Our banking services make it simple, secure, and tailored to you. Ready to grow your business? We offer expert guidance and custom solutions to help your business thrive. Dreaming of a new home? Our mortgage specialists are here to make the process seamless, all designed with you in mind. We're more than just a bank. We're your partner for life's biggest moments. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC, equal housing lender. About almost a week and a half ago, I guess 2 weeks ago tomorrow, the Ole Miss chapter of Turning Point USA hosted a Turning Point event. This is the Turning Point, is what the tour has been called. It's the continuation of the tour that began before Charlie Kirk's assassination. Nearly 10,000 were in attendance inside the SJB Pavilion on the campus of Ole Miss. One of the biggest Turning Point events ever. It was respectful. There was discourse in the way that Charlie would have liked it, with the Vice President of the United States of America. Respectful disagreements, respectful questions. An enthusiastic and patriotic crowd, and outside of the building, respect as well. There were a few protesters that were there, but it was mostly performative. Just a few days later, about a week later, similar type event, maybe not quite as big a crowd, but thousands inside Neville Arena on the campus of Auburn. Eric and Laura Trump were there. Benny Johnson was there and spoke. And a great event. Last night, there was another sold-out Turning Point event on the campus of UC Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley, in Berkeley, California. Now, Berkeley has a history of protest. It's kind of what the university's founded on, almost. Not exactly, but, you can protest anything, and you are welcomed with open arms as long as what you're protesting is kind of a left-leaning cause at Berkeley. If you are speaking from the right, not only have you run into problems with the administration, in fact, one of the conservative groups on campus had to sue the administration over a speaking event that was canceled preemptively a couple of years ago. They ended up settling, and Cal Berkeley had to pay the attorney's fees for the student group, and they changed their policy, saying, yes, we will allow equal time, if you want to describe it that way. The event was not nearly as big. It was inside a campus auditorium last night. Protesters were expected, and they showed up in spades. In fact, it turned into a violent Antifa attack by a group that was at least once called Any Means Necessary, according to Jack Posobiec. It was a group that was behind the protests on campus that turned very violent in 2017. Dozens of anti-fascist protesters, some with faces wrapped in keffiyehs, pulled out microphones and noisemakers, crowding in on the people in MAGA hats and freedom shirts as they lined up early to catch the final stop of the Turning Point USA's fall campus tour. As Kirk fans lined up to enter Zellerbach Hall on Bancroft Way, some hoping to claim standby tickets for an overflow crowd, protesters alternated chanting, "No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA," including cheers that said anti-Semites go home and expletive, "You're dead, homie," a reference to recently assassinated Charlie Kirk 9 weeks ago tomorrow. Around 5 o'clock last night, before the event began, a clash broke out between protesters and a man who was selling Kirk Memorial Freedom T-shirts, a replica of the T-shirt that he was wearing on the day in which he was assassinated. That skirmish was broken up by police. A couple were arrested. As it got darker, the protesters got louder. You saw smoke bombs and flares that were shot off, and when that happens, you combine the outside lights with the smoke and the fire and the people, and it does have the appearance of a war zone, even if it's not actually that. And then intimidation was the key that the protesters engaged in, blocking the exits. At one point, there were 4 exits to the building. 3 of them were blocked by protesters so that they could funnel all of the Charlie Kirk supporters, TPUSA attendees, so they could funnel them all to one entrance so that they could concentrate their heckling as people were leaving the building. As attendees started to trickle out, they were met with shouts of shame from protesters who surrounded the exits. Free speech when it's free for me. That's what the left believes.
I don't even know if they believe anything. Honestly, I think it's just somebody telling them stuff and giving them money.
Well, maybe that's the case.
Believe in that money.
It was another organized, well-funded protest with Antifa behind it. And then you ask them, what's Antifa? Oh, Antifa's not a thing. Really? It may take a while for airlines to return to normal. At least that's the story that we are getting. As the government shutdown comes to an end, airline traffic has been snarled across the United States over the last few days. Thousands upon thousands of flights have been canceled for a number of reasons. Chief among them, air traffic controllers who have now gone 41 days without a paycheck, have been working double shifts, overtime, trying to keep the skies safe. But the flight disruptions are widespread and are ongoing. And part of the explanation for why this is going to continue even when the government begins to operate is that when you start canceling flights, planes aren't where they are supposed to be. Flight crews aren't where they are supposed to be. So you don't have pilots, you don't have first officers, you don't have flight attendants who move in symphony with planes across the country from one spot to another. And it's going to take some time to get all of the planes that have been grounded and all of the crews that have been grounded to the places that they need to go. Mike Taylor, who leads research on airports and airlines at J.D. Power, said if you think about it, there's all these aircraft that didn't fly where they were supposed to go on a normal route. And now you got to figure out a way to get pilots and cabin crews for those flights to those places. Since Friday, and this was through yesterday, about 8,000 flights have been canceled. 4% of the flights at the 40 busiest airports in the country. That number is going to rise to 6% and then 10% by the end of this week. On Sunday, 1 in 10 flights was scratched nationally. And that may not sound like a big deal on the surface. I was talking with somebody yesterday who had traveled for a sporting event this weekend. It was part of the broadcast crew. And he was in Lexington, Kentucky. Couldn't get a flight out of Lexington. He was able to get into Lexington, couldn't get a flight out, so he went to Cincinnati. Other members of his crew went to Louisville. His flight was fine, getting from Cincinnati back to Atlanta. The rest of the crew trying to get back to Atlanta or other places, their flights out of Louisville were canceled. So you get a rental car if it's available and you start driving. All of this while they also try to continue to ramp up the number of air traffic controllers that are hopefully keeping the skies safe. What a mess. What an avoidable mess. We'll wrap up MRC with you after this.
From the Venable Glass.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
On with the show.
Is back.
Holy smokes.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Tomorrow, middays with Gerard Gibbert will be at the Sheraton Flowood Refuge Hotel and Conference Center for the Innovate Mississippi Accelerate Technology Conference. That's a mouthful. The event helps fuel Mississippi's tech startup business ecosystem. To learn more about the speakers, the event, and to register, go to accelerate.innovate.ms. Gerard's going to be busy the rest of the week. On Friday, Middays with Gerard Gibbert will be in Oxford for the annual University of Mississippi Banking and Finance Symposium. Not too late for you to register for that. You can go to the Ole Miss alumni page, or you can email Dr. Ken Cyree. His email address is kbcyree, KBCYREE, at olemiss.edu.
That'd be right down Gerard's alley right there. Mm-hmm. Banking and Finance Symposium, man. That'd be like just a breakfast talk for him.
We've had a lot of fun at that event through the years. It'll just be middays. It was always, we were there early in the morning. It was kind of before they got started, and then when we were there in the afternoons for sports talk, they were kind of wrapping up. But Gerard will be right there in the middle of it. A lot of good stuff happening at the Ole Miss Banking and Finance Symposium. And, again, check it out. Go to the Ole Miss Alumni Association webpage for more on that. You've heard me talk about it a lot. Land is awesome. Whether it's a place to hunt, a place to just get away and prop up your feet, fish, relax, unwind, or maybe investment property. And if you've got land on the mind, I hope you also have David Fisher Land Company on the mind. Their website, davidfisherland.com. If you've got the dream of owning land, maybe it's a big place where you make the hunting rules, maybe it's a smaller tract where you want to build your dream home or just have a cabin for a weekend getaway, Maybe you recognize that land is such an incredible investment because they're simply not making any more. David Fisher Land Company can help. They've got 40 years of experience in farm and recreational land brokerage, land appraisals, farmland management. So whether you're looking for 100 acres or less, or several thousand acres, or maybe an equity share at a hunting club, anywhere in the Mississippi Delta, David Fisher Land Company is ready to earn your business. They're based in Mississippi, in Inverness, right there in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, but they work in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. David, Jack, and Travis all ready to help you with whatever your land needs may be at David Fisher Land Company. The website, davidfisherland.com. You can see the listings that they have online at davidfisherland.com. Last time with you this morning, Richard Cross, Lance Tolbert. In March of 2025, a federal jury convicted Feeding Our Future founder Amy Bach and Safari restaurant co-owner Salim Saeed of wire fraud, conspiracy, bribery, and money laundering for defrauding the child nutrition program of $250 million during the COVID-19 pandemic. The scheme involved submitting claims for millions of non-existent meals using fake rosters and kickbacks. FBI surveillance revealed minimal activity at sites like the Minneapolis restaurant that pocketed $12 million. Minnesota's Department of Education faced bipartisan criticism for ignoring red flags and approving reimbursements without verification. Why do I tell you this? There was a speech that was made, filmed by a congresswoman actually. Her name was Ilhan Omar, and she filmed a video at the restaurant that was at the center of this massive COVID aid fraud scheme.
faraxsanahay in maanta safari aan soo gaarnay safari in ay tahay meelaha sayti oo diyaarinayo cunto maalin
Of course she's not speaking English.
Yeah,
why would she
you.
do so? Why would she speak English in the United States? She help with the plan? 47 in Minnesota's Somali community. A Somali community that Ilhan Omar has not only talked about how proud she is a member of the Somali community in the greater Minneapolis area. Charged with stealing $250 million in COVID-19 funds from child nutrition programs.
Yeah, keep bringing them in. Come on.
Can't make it up, man. Can't make it up.
No, they're just here to work, Richard.
Can you imagine if an American did that in Somalia?
Their head would be chopped off, yeah.
Off with their heads. What do we do here?
Pat them on the back and elect them to Congress. Yeah.
Thanks for being with us on this Tuesday morning, the 11th of November. One last time I say to all of you who have served or are serving, happy Veterans Day to you. This is your day. We thank you for your willingness to voluntarily serve our country. Hope you have a great Tuesday. For Lance, I'm Richard. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.